August the 12th, 2024. Guys, an update on that nuclear power plant over in Zaporizhzhia. Now, in 2022, it actually went offline. Russia had taken back that territory, but it's got 6 units, 2 big cooling towers. You saw the one on the right that was on fire. But those units still have nuclear rods in them. Even Fukushima, guys, is still putting out radiated water into those big tanks they have, and it's been shut down for quite a while. I mean, there's a couple of units coming back home, but those rods actually, we're dealing with maybe 14,000 year half-life with some of this equipment, and that's why they keep building those tanks. Even though no power has been generated from there since 2022, they have kept enough going on for their local cooling tanks and things like that, and that's what we saw on fire last night. Now, some people reported those were images from an old fire, but it's not. If you just go in and put fire at the Zaporizhzhia, a nuclear plant, you'll see all the mainstream media now. They're updating on this. Well, the fire's out. It says Kiev and Moscow traded blame on Sunday after a fire broke out at a cooling tower of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant under the control of Russian forces. Moscow installed officials said early Monday the blaze at the cooling tower had been completely extinguished. Now, Ukraine's blaming Russia for doing it, for publicity or something, but really Russia has it in control. And if they occupy that territory, which more than likely that will be in that zone, why would they want to destroy it? But what would Ukraine have to gain? If radiation spread into other nations, would that bring in that Article 5 or whatever they call it, attacking friendly nations, kind of like being in the NATO but not really, and you start dealing with the International Nuclear Committee, whatever they call it. Anyway, let's point out some of the things and clear up a few things about, was there a dose that was emitted during that time of very high radiation particles? And let's just take a look at it, okay? And you make up your mind for yourself. I'm trying to be safe here. Now, they're saying there's no exposure. Let's look at some background information. This is typical exposure and dose rates. This is from the U.S. Geological Survey. And it says the table below shows typical amounts of radiation and exposures of, here in the U.S. they call it MR/H per hour, but the international dose equivalent, kind of like universal time, is in nanoservants per hour, and that is abbreviated NSV/H. See that right there, guys? That's what we're dealing with when we look at the radiation meters in Europe. Now, the source of exposure, terrestrial radiation, that's just every day walking around, whatever, not including a dose from ingested or inhaled radionuclides. That approximate exposure rate is less than 0.0006 to more than 0.003 mRh. Now, the approximate dose rate in nanoservants, that's what we need to stay with, less than 6 to more than 83 nanoservants per hour. That's your typical background radiation. Now, radiation from space, we call it cosmic radiation, and this is your averages. So if you're having a geomagnetic storm or CME coming in, that's going to change that, right? But normally the cosmic radiation, you're dealing with 23 to 1107 nanoservants per hour. Flying in a commercial airplane, we talked about this before, it's one of the most dangerous things you can do as far as radiation. Maybe that's why you have a lot of early retiring pilots and flight attendants. Flying in a commercial airplane, you're dealing with 2,000 nanoservants per hour. Again, ground radiation, 6 to 83. Commercial airlines, a lot of them fly an average of 33,000 feet, but 2,000 nanoservants per hour. Now, I found information from Europe on the last few days of the different radiation monitors listed there. Again, the high end on this is 2,000 nanoservants from flying these commercial airplanes. Now, what you're looking at is current information coming from the European Commission, Joint Research Centers, Radioactivity Environmental Monitoring. And that's what you're seeing. These dots are different radiation monitor locations across Europe, UK, You got a lot through this area, but what we're dealing now is with the Ukrainian situation, and I put a mark here right there. This is the Zaporizhzhia Dam. This is the cooling pond, or whatever you want to call it, and they get water out of this reservoir that's dammed up down here, guys, right in this area. So if you wanted to do major harm, and I think they've tried to attack that dam again, even though it's shut off, and I don't think Russia's doing any of this, by the way, because it looks like it's going to end up being their territory. But right here, this is the plant. This is where you saw the picture of the cooling towers here, and there is the thing. Now, let's look at this. Here is the data that's available. I'll refresh it now just to make sure. Look at this. 3,000, that's above the 2,000. This is in nanoservants per hour. See right there, guys? That's why I went there to show you that GDR, or the 3,000 is very high. And you can see some peaks here, and this is going back from July the 8th until I've got the bar set right here in the last few days. 3,000 was very high. That's higher than an airplane. Then here, we're getting into around the 2nd or so of August. We saw a 900,000 peak. Was something going on there? But now in this red bar, during this event we're seeing now, we're dealing with 3 million nanoservants per hour. I didn't make this up. This, again, European Commission. And we'll back it out, guys, and you can look through this. You can click on any of these dots, and it will pop up with an almost full page of information. It's a lot of detail into it, but it looks like Europe, you have had a pretty good dose. Again, I'm not making this up. I'm just looking at the information that I can find. But, guys, there's other information coming from the European Commission that's not very good. They're really talking about now, they're threatening Elon Musk with putting him in prison if he does not block Trump's speech tonight in Europe. That is how libtarded Europe has become, and very quickly trying to enforce all of that into the rest of the world. But there's people that are standing up against it, and one of them, here's Ukraine, and all of this, that's Russia. Here we are, we got some radiation meters here, but this is the average around this area, guys. So again, I didn't make it up. Here's a chart. Maybe it was 29.999 million nanoservants per hour, but look at that. They're not reporting on it. I'm just giving you the information that I have here. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. Some major heads up. Be safe.